Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Occasionally, I get questions or inquiries from self-published authors who want to make sales of a large quantity of their self-published books to organizations, schools, and corporations. These are often referred to as bulk book sales or volume sales. Sounds like a great idea. Imagine being able to sell hundreds of copies of your book in one transaction. But it's not that easy. First of all, let's explain what exactly is a bulk book order. This is where an organization, a corporation, a school will buy multiple copies of your book. They use these books for training programs, educational programs. That's very typical. This is not a few copies of your book. This would be like hundreds of copies of your book. Because it is that many copies, often these buyers want a volume sales discount. But in a little bit, we'll talk about why you might not want to offer a discount. If you self-publish on KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, you can order up to 999 author copies that you can sell in bulk to these buyers. However, you will not get your usual author royalties on that order. If you're on another self-publishing platform, they may have similar bulk sales programs. So you just have to check with them and see what is available there. For these sales, you may get a purchase order from the buyer for this large quantity of books. Often the payment terms will include payment to you within 60 to 90 days or more after delivery. And a lot of them may not want to go with a prepayment or deposit on that order either. This means that you, as the author and publisher, may end up playing bank while your institutional buyer, let's call them, takes their time in paying you back. This is why you should think very, very carefully about offering a volume sales discount to these buyers. If you have to upfront the payment for these copies of these books, for the printing of these books, you're going to be out that money while they take their time paying their bill. Sadly, I have firsthand experience of this situation. When I was in the promotional products business, I would have these large institutional or organizational buyers buy thousands of products, and then they would tell me that they would pay in 60, 90, 120 days. However, I would have to pay my vendors up front in order for them to even do the order. So in many cases, I was playing bank to multinational corporations while they took their time paying their bill. And that cost me thousands of dollars. So be very careful about these folks when they ask you for a volume sales discount. Now, if you order on KDP, or wherever you're printing them, you could have them delivered direct to your buyer. That's actually really efficient. Otherwise, they ship it to you, and then you just have to reship it to the buyer. With sales taxation, if you do any of these bulk sales, you're going to have sales taxation issues. Because you are selling direct to a buyer, you are responsible for any local, regional, or national, or maybe even international sales taxes that apply to you. So before you do any bulk book sale orders. You need to have a chat with your CPA or your tax advisor about how to handle the sales tax situation. And that's one of the really big deterrents to doing these bulk book sales, even if it's a large volume in one transaction. Here's the even tougher part of this whole bulk sales order scenario. These orders are not easy to come by, and they require a significant sales effort. You don't just waltz into a school. Have a chat with maybe a teacher or two or an administrator, and ta-da, a book sale occurs. Educational institutions are some of the toughest buying clients to get into. Many of them are governmental organizations that have extremely complex purchasing procedures and requirements. And corporation buyers of bulk or volume sales, they're not much better. Sometimes they're even worse. And just because they're big doesn't mean that they have a lot of money to spend on a big quantity of your books. And your book better serve a very specific purpose and meet some intended outcome. Cold calling corporations is also just a wasted effort. Unless you have a network that can facilitate introductions to corporate buyers, forget it. You can't just waltz in there and say, hey, I've got this great book that I think would be terrific for your training programs. You're going to get nowhere. And let's say that you're a speaker at an event and you're thinking, wow, this would be a great opportunity to sell a lot of books. Some of these events try and weasel around this whole book sales thing by saying you can sell your book at the back of the room, and you know all these attendees would love to buy your book. Oh no, they don't. That is ridiculous. I've done that so many times, and virtually no one buys the book. What you want to do if you are a speaker at an event and you want to sell your books in large quantity for attendees, you ask the event if they will purchase the books in advance and ask for that payment before you ever step on the stage. Now that's for live events. With the pandemic of 2020, a lot of events have gone virtual, and that makes that possibility of selling your book to events to sell or to give to their attendees almost a non-issue. I hope I've given you some insight into how these large quantity bulk book sales or volume sales work and whether it might be right for you. If you have found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Amazon TuneIn Radio. If you like the video better, that's great. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so that you'll get an alert when a new video is available. If you'd like to see my self-published books, they are on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is search for my author page on any of those platforms and you'll see a list of everything that's available there. I would appreciate it if you shared my podcasts or videos or books with your friends on social media. And if you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.